I believe we are as healthy as the stories that we tell. Those we tell to others and those we tell to ourselves. Sensed we were something special from the moment that I knew. The stories that I tell myself are ones I tell to you. That's the chorus of a song I'm working on called As Healthy as Our Stories. From time to time, the focus of a Dear Partner letter will be to talk about something I've learned in the 55 years since I first met Mike McCoy. And this is one of those letters. Dear Partner, there's a phrase that I became familiar with a few years ago that says we are as sick as our secrets. As someone who grew up in a family with a significant secret, the idea certainly rings true to me. But then it also feels like a negative way of trying to become healthy. It reminds me of the time the doctor told you there was only a 10% chance the growth on your vocal cords was cancer. The problem was the only word we heard was cancer. And while thankfully a few days later it was confirmed there was no cancer, there was a lot of fear walking to the car that day. The added implication in the phrase we are as sick as our secrets is that we're all sick somehow. Saying that, I'm more comfortable with the idea that we are as healthy as our stories. I also believe the more that the stories we tell ourselves are in line with the stories we tell others, the healthier we will all be. And add to that the understanding that leaving something unsaid does not necessarily mean it's a secret. And then combine all of that with the idea that life is a love story, which means in the end, what I truly believe is that we are all as healthy as our love stories. Here's one of mine. There was a young couple who fell in love on their first date. They got married. He was 24, she was 22. She was a nurse, he was finishing his medical training. A year after their wedding, and a few days after their first son was born, they were separated by war. And when they reunited, something was terribly wrong. Eventually, the man was hospitalized. First in the psychiatric ward of the hospital where he'd been receiving advanced training, and then in the psychiatric hospital run by the Veterans Administration, and finally at the state mental institution. Nothing, including electroshock treatments, could free him from what was described at the time as catatonic schizophrenia. He finally did respond to a controversial insulin shock treatment, and the story goes, to his desire to see his second son who had been born on the first day of spring. The man was able to come home a few months after the birth. The family reunited. Life and love returned. The terror of those times of separation became sealed in silence and a sense of shame. One of the woman's lifelong goals became keeping her husband healthy, safe, and alive. 5 years after they were reunited, they moved across the country and began anew. I never found out whether the man ever knew his own father had similar struggles and that his oldest brother died in a mental institution when the man was a boy. For me, it's a beautiful and enduring love story in the shadow of a painful and shameful secret. And yes, for many years, the second son, that would be me, was in many ways as sick as that secret. And yet eventually, with love and counseling and hard work, a new story was written. A story where in the end I discover I can be loving, lovable, and loved. The shameful secret no longer needing to be shameful or a secret. Proof to me that we can be as healthy as our stories. Another love story I was able to play a small part in came 25 years ago when you saw and followed the light of love out of the darkness. The lasting story of that night is that on some deep level you understood that you were loved. And instead of running or pushing that love away, you embraced it and were embraced by it. A love story that lives in you that you continue to live out every day. A love story that for the past 25 years, the Monday after Thanksgiving, we have taken a moment and remembered. Proof to me that we can be as healthy as our stories. And then there is a love story that grows out of that love story. When your daughter was about to marry, you built her and her future husband a dining room table, and you and Connie drove to Colorado and delivered it. And then sitting around that table, because you did not want any of the past veiled in secrecy, you shined a light of story into some shameful secrets. And what came with those revelations was the affirmation that with love and truth there can be healing and reconciliation. You learned again the cleansing power of tears and the healing power of forgiveness. And after those days of truth and tears, gratitude and grace, your daughter gave you perhaps the finest gift a parent can receive when she embraced you and told you, "Dad, I always knew that I was loved." Proof to me that we can be as healthy as our stories. That story and this letter ends a few months later, surrounded by those who love you, watching you and your daughter laughing and dancing on her wedding day. 'Cause my daughter's getting married, thought it's time for her to hear from me some things I'd been and done back in her childhood years. Those drinking days and cheating ways, I'm hoping she can trust. It was never about her, that she was always loved. When I started talking to her, felt the tears begin to flow as I shared things she might have sensed, but now she knows, she knows. Well, I was not the best of men when she was growing up. It was never about her, and she was always loved. When silence can be broken, there can be time for repair. When light shines in the darkness, we may see what's truly there. We're as healthy as our stories, shared now if the truth be told. Knowing we are loved enough may be enough to know. When I finished, she said, "Thanks, Dad." Some more tears and then a smile. She said, "Can't wait to laugh with you as you walk me down the aisle." The more we know, the more we know. She said, "I know this much. It never was about me, and I was always loved." Whatever happens from this time and place, it is enough to know it will be about her, and she is always loved.